Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Chelsea.
Welcome to the Shifting Perceptions podcast.
We are bringing you inspiration to live a more creative lifestyle because our favorite people are the ones that choose the path less traveled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 36th episode of the Shifting Perceptions podcast. This week, we had the joy of sitting down with Suzanne Tucker, the founder of Generation Mindful and the well-known Time In ToolKit. Suzanne is a powerhouse of positivity and nurturing energy, and she created a safe space for Jay and I to discuss the wonders and curveballs that parenting can bring. Generation Mindful's program is an engaging collection of illustrations and games dedicated to teaching children and their parents how to acknowledge and express their emotions and behaviors. A mom of four, physical therapist, and parent educator since 1992, Suzanne has been teaching positive parenting and mindfulness classes for over 2 decades. Hearing how she jumped from a PT to this entrepreneur powerhouse was one of the coolest parts of the interview. Anytime you hear a mom turn her story into a completely inspiring business journey, I'm all ears. I hope you not only love this one, but take the time to purchase this kit for your own kids. We are implementing the Time In Toolkit and the Feelings cards, as well as diving into the online parenting course, and we are already seeing amazing changes with our kids. Our link for the program is in our show notes and in our newsletter, so please check it out.
Hey guys, this is Jay Alders. While you're listening to this episode, if you're not driving, definitely check out Generation Mindful's products. We set up a link for you on jalders.com/genmindful. That's jalders.com/GEN-mindful. If you're new to the show and you don't know who the heck we are, I'm an artist. That's my job, believe it or not. And you might have seen my artwork on some album covers. I most recently did an album for Slightly Stupid. I pretty much have a dream job. You could check out my artwork if you're looking for a print or some artistic apparel or a gift for someone. My art is very much inspired by surf culture. If you're a beach lover, if you like outdoor activities, you might be into my art, and I would love for you to check it out and let me know what you think. And Chelsea is a birth doula. Our kids call her the baby helper. And if you are in the middle of a pregnancy or planning that phase of your life, you might want to check out her website is ommamasdoulas.com. She also has this great weekly newsletter that goes out, and her blog is just full of advice and tips. And if you forgot any of these links, they are in the show notes on shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or Overcast or Spotify or any of those podcast apps on your phone, there should be a section for notes and links right from your phone. You can check that out too. On that note,
let's jump in.
Hey, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us on Shifting Perceptions. We are both fans of your work. We are addicted to your newsletter and love what you're doing and are just really stoked to chat with you today.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I am really, really curious about Suzanne as a little girl. I know you came from a family of 7 kids, which has got to be its own podcast in its own right. So I'll preface this question by saying this. So I think that mindful parents that are perhaps more conscious about being conscious, it seems to be that we get here in one of at least 2 ways. Either you come from a very idyllic, butterfly-filled fantasy childhood, or like myself, you came from a family where there was a lot of drama and chaos and arguing and obviously love mixed in with that. So my parents definitely were on the more dramatic side of things, and even starting at my birth, I had a very traumatic birth. I wasn't breathing when I was born, and I believe a lot of this stuff sort of started there. And I think a lot of my parenting style and our parenting style, I should say, is influenced by the idea of doing the best we can to learn from, past mistakes, I'll call them. But it seems like in listening to some interviews with you that your parents didn't even yell, so you had quite the opposite experience.
Okay, yes. So let me tell you a little bit about that, because it's such a profound question. You're asking me about me, and what is conscious parenting, but parenting with self-awareness. That for me is what it is. So yes, I was raised one of 7, or am one of 7, and my mom never yelled. So that people think right there, oh, that's just idyllic. And it is wonderful because there was a lot of calm or regulation happening. But the flip side of every gift, I believe, is a challenge. And so I was not raised without challenge. And the challenge for us, I would say, I like to joke that our family motto was happy, happy, happy. And so the flip side of no yelling is a lack of acceptance of the moment and living in the chaos and sort of the messy of all those other feelings that there are. And it's not that we weren't feeling them. It's just that I was fifth of seven and I was a really cooperative child. So I was a pretty quick study of what was going on. And my hypothesis said that to be loved, to be worthy, was to be good. If I do good, I am good. If I do bad, I am bad. And so that is the risk we run when we make calm or happy our God, right? The goal. I love to ask parents, what's your goal? What's driving you in your parenthood? And I can't tell you how often happy is the goal. I actually have data on this. I have asked thousands. And I'm going to crunch those numbers real soon, but I can tell you just from glancing at them when they come in, my guesstimate is going to be about 70% is happy. And so as a child, there was a depth that I longed for. And that I feel like as adults, we're meant to be the adult we needed when we were little. And in therapy, when I believe we all deserve therapy, I got close to that, and I call her little Suzanne. And I really got an insight into what was going on inside of me as that little person. And what I deeply, deeply, deeply wanted and needed was someone just to look in my eyes and affirm that I was seen and that I was enough. So you can come to this conscious parenting journey through abuse, through trauma, or through what appears to everyone else to be, the Brady Bunch sort of upbringing, but it doesn't mean it does not come without inner struggle and a chance for help, for healing and growth. And so that is sort of my journey here. I was super blessed to have a low, what I call ACE score, adverse childhood experiences, 0 to 10. That's a scale. And I was on the low end of that adverse childhood experience scale.
Can I ask what the upper echelon of that scale might look like, or maybe a better question might be an average for people, so they can relate to where they might fall?
Yeah, let me tell you about this, because if you've never Googled ACE and you have any sort of feeling that childhood was tough, it will change your life to spend about 10, 20 minutes reading about this research. It's called the ACE study. It was done in the 90s. And what it did was, with a simple 10-question survey, it really rocked the medical world. And it showed that between 0, so 0 is no adverse childhood experience. That means mom and dad were not divorced. Nobody was an alcoholic. These would all be a number, okay? So if somebody was divorced, that would be a 1.
Okay. If
somebody was an alcoholic, 2. Somebody was in prison, 3. And it goes on from there. Somebody had a mental health issue in your formative family world, that would be another number. If there was neglect or abuse, and it goes on from there. So when you ask about an average, I believe over 40% of kiddos have within a number 2 around there. And what we found is, as those numbers go up, the tendency to abuse drugs, attempt suicide, to have actual physical health issues like cardiac disease, pulmonary disease, asthma, and other disease states are actually linked and parallel our ACE scores. Does that make sense? So it's not just our mental health, it's actually our physical health parallel our early childhood experiences.
Can I assume that has to do with like epigenetics?
It has to do with stress. Mm-hmm. So stress in the body causes disease, dis-ease. I love to call it dis-ease. ease, the lack of ease, right?
Yeah.
And so as conscious parents, we're not looking for perfect, we're looking for present. And I like to think of the word mindfulness as present in the moment with joy and ease. That word joy and ease. So yeah, is it chaotic? Yes. Are crazy things happening all around us? Yes. But we're looking for an actual state in the body because we only really have two alternatives. It's present in the moment or not. And that dis-ease state, it's, you know what I'm talking about, right? It's that out of body experience where it's very stressful, high cortisol, and that's where the destruction of the cells and the disease comes from. It's from the stress, from the cortisol.
Right. So Suzanne, I want to ask, so you were just kind of touching upon like it was, you know, the Brady Bunch for you growing up, but when you're talking about, you know, that you just needed someone to sort of identify with you and say you were enough and all of that, is this a part of like that masking, we're just happy and this is who we are, let's just like everything else just sort of gets pushed down? Is that kind of like what you're touching upon there, that it just wasn't, you weren't allowed to openly express? Is that kind of where we are?
Yes. And I think I was the keeper of my own prison, and because it was never overtly said that I could not express. It's that wasn't modeled for my parents. And so we as human beings model. That's how we're made. We model what we see. We have this beautiful thing called mirror neurons, where we literally mirror what's going on around us. And so even though it was not overtly said, had I challenged this concept that I was picking up of happy, 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 I'm sure that my parents would have met it with curiosity and maybe displeasure, but we would have gotten to the other side of it.
Right.
But as a child, there was a lot of confusion for me because I'm very sensitive. And so I had a lot of stress, even though my ACE score was low. And I'm speaking to everyone out there because, you know, we're very critical and judgmental about ourselves. And if we struggle, we often judge, well, I don't deserve to struggle. I don't deserve to have these demons or these mental health issues. I think about Robin Williams and his struggles. And he used to judge and look back at his childhood and say, we were wealthy. I had a mom and a dad. They loved me. Why do I struggle? And yet he felt very alone growing up. And he felt very misunderstood and not seen. So I think that we need to step back and not judge, but just do what you asked, which is self-awareness. Who am I? What was it like as a little person? What were the stories I made up? What did I think I needed to do to be loved? And we can parent with that self-awareness, and we don't need to wait until we're in our 18 and the 20s and 30s to do this. We can start to have these deeper conversations with our little people. That's a real opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's the craziest part just in this new generation of sort of parenting and just where we live now. It's interesting to me to have, so we have two twin 4-year-olds, and then our daughter is 5, and I can have very real conversations with a 5-year-old that like I never remember my parents ever looking me in the eye and like talking about fairly grown-up things. Like she understands so much. And I think that's kind of a shock to me as I'm learning how to be a parent myself is, wow, like these could have all been open conversations with me. So I understood the world in a really different way.
Yes, I just had to take a deep breath into that. That sentient being that's in front of you, that deep soul is right there. And I think we've all had experiences where that little person shows up to us as mystical and powerful and deep and wise. And it's always in the little moments. And I can remember when my really powerful, strong-willed Morgan, my second child, said to me when I used to try to punish my kids. I used to try timeouts. You know, I used to get so overwhelmed. I'd be like, go upstairs, you're in trouble. And it didn't work. Right. And I remember this one time because we ended up battling. And I remember her looking me straight in the eye and saying to me, I'm a person too, just like you. And she was questioning why in her triggered state and my triggered state, I overrode her. I was more. And the truth is, I am the leader. I like to liken us as parents as the captain of the ship, but it doesn't give us the permission to be disrespectful or to overpower another human being in that way that I was attempting to do with her. That was one of many moments that really shook me to the core and helped me wake up. And that's what we're doing. We're all walking around at some varying level of sleepwalking.
Right.
And I was certainly sleepwalking or, at that moment about my power, my personal power, and how I was choosing to use it as a parent.
Well, right. It's like the difference between being like a leader and a dictator, right? Like there has to be an open source conversation. Well, so let's rewind to where you started. So I'm interested to hear how we jump from like physical therapy, and I don't know what the timeline is with like, I know you guys have this wellness center. So talk about the timeline of moving through your actual career and what your background is into this new program with your parenting.
Yes. So 25 years ago, I graduated as a physical therapist, and I've always worked holistically. So body, mind, and spirit, because that's really where the healing happens. You're a physical therapist, but you're surely not working only on the physical body. And I met my husband working in Georgia, and he's a physical therapist as well. So we always knew we wanted to found a holistic health center, and that's what we did. And as I became a mother, I became increasingly interested in mindfulness and mindful parenting. And that is just the turn that my career took. I spent more and more time teaching and learning and running classes through our health center. And about 8 years ago, I evolved that mission to be international. So beyond just my city, by taking it onto the, onto the internet, basically, which is just the web that binds us all. Mm-hmm. And 3 years ago, launched Generation Mindful, which was just really an answer to a need that members in our community were asking for. They were loving the philosophy, as we do as mindful adults. We love the science and the philosophy of mindful parenting, but we struggle with the nuts and bolts of it. And so Generation Mindful was my attempt to meet the need that I was hearing from my community for practical and playful and invitations to make connection a habit.
I love that. So which thing was it out of all this platform that was the beginning? Like you're like, this is the thing that really connected with people.
I think right from the start, we launched Peacemakers, which was a deck of mantra cards via Kickstarter, which is crowdsourcing. And if you've got a big idea, I think that that's the best place to go with it, because you start to grow community and you get information back. And I really consider Generation Mindful as co-created with the community. It's not something that I generated. It's something that I listened for and that I then set into action. But it comes through a lot of listening. So it actually started with my baby massage back in the day, where I was practicing teaching, sitting on the floor, being in a circle, a small circle, always about 10 people or less with our babies. And a lot of what I learned in those decades of holding weekly classes, of pausing and listening and meeting the baby where they were, where they are, vibrationally, energetically, I feel like I've leveraged that experience and brought it into this experience, into creating that experience for people in a simple, easy way with tangible things that really pull for that moment that I experienced profoundly as a mom, just by being in a circle like that with others and pausing my busy life and practicing baby massage.
I love that so much. So I actually I'm a birth doula, but I run a postpartum mom and baby group every Wednesday. We do it really, ours is more focused on mom. Like I say, BYOB, you can bring your baby if you want, but you don't have to if you don't feel like you want to that day. But we weren't introduced until your program until we had toddlers. So I really, I do this for other people, but as far as like connecting with my baby through some of these more peaceful ways, we just didn't have that community at the time. So talk to me about like so I don't think I really knew that there was like some implementation happening through babies. So talk about where you kind of start to work through that.
Sure. For me, because of the PT background, I geek out on all the brain science and the research.
Us
and there's
too.
so much out there.
I love
right?
that part of it.
I love that.
So interesting. And so what's fascinating to me is that the baby is actually born into their brain stem. Okay. So there's like, if I could do a quick mini brain rundown,
yeah.
I call it the red light, yellow light, green light brain. And red is a beautiful part of the brain that's very primal. It's the brain stem. And for all of us out there that have ever felt either frozen, like you can't move, or you've wanted to run, or you just want to fight, that's the brain stem. That reactive state to keep you alive is the brain stem. It's very primal. And it's so fascinating to me that babies are really born into that really deep rooted physical part of the body. And if you watch, when they're hungry, what do? They let you know it, right? If they're cold, they let you know it. They're really connected to that deep physical primal survival place. And Jay, you spoke about birth and your recollections of survival, of here I am in this world, I've got to survive. And I believe those moments in the uterus, and, in utero and then birth are super formative to imprinting. They just imprint on our soul. And then we bring them into our lives, either consciously or unconsciously. We're living out of them. We're acting out of them. And so there's nothing broken is what I like people to know. And I always affirm that in myself. I'm not broken. My life is not broken. My child is not broken. There's just what is. And so with your awareness, you're very blessed to know what was that like when I was born. Most people don't even know what it was like, and they don't know if it's running them.
Yeah.
But you have a glimpse into a reality. And I believe that through the body, we can integrate memories and moments like that. We can't erase them, and we wouldn't want to. It's imprinted on us. But I believe in this thing called integration. So for me, that red light brain is not a bad. People think red, stop. No, right? Think about my childhood. I'm super interested in that red. I think it's juicy and it's rich and it's creative and it's real and it's raw. It's primal. We don't want to negate that part of our being. We want to integrate it. So for me then, as a therapist, to see my little people about week 8, if you've ever, as a parent, noticed, it's like this thing happens. Your baby lights up from the inside.
Yeah.
They start smiling at you, right?
Yes. It's amazing.
That's
full awareness.
amazing. So it's the middle brain going online. And that middle brain, they call it the limbic brain. It's super emotive, and it's where attachment happens. I mean, attachment happens through every cell in the body, truly. But a large part of attachment happens in the middle brain. Okay, I'm not going to go too deep, but there's this little beautiful thing in our brain called the hippocampus.
Yes.
And it integrates memory and emotion. Okay, so when I see that happen as a therapist, it lights me. We're mirror neurons, right? We have them in our bodies. So when you're present to that part of a baby, when you're with them, I think it awakens that within us too, whether we know it or not. It does.
Well, I think it's a cool time for moms because it's like we always call it Groundhog Day from like that 6-week point when you're just starting to feel like, holy moly, this is like so unforgiving, all of this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like right when you think I can't take another day that I just like wake up and like feed a baby all day and clean diapers. They light up right to you. And it's like, oh, we just like connected in a whole new way, which is a very, I don't know. It's very primal. It's like all just like timed perfectly, right?
It's divine. It's divine. I have a recording of my little one. We also have twins. Our youngest are 9. And my little boy making this sound, it's like they lift up their nose and it's a sweet little giggle chirp sort of thing. And I think all of my kids have done it, but I had the wherewithal to capture it, to record it. Yeah. And it just lights up my soul. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful place. And we're present to it with our little ones, and we have it within us. And you're right. When we just think we can't go another day, the body has this thing called hormones, and it's fabulous, and endorphins. And, we're meant to be in relationship with one another. And that's a big part of Generation Mindful. It's not have a mindful child or be a mindful person. it's connecting the generations. That's our jam. It's through relationships. It's not these products. It's what opens up for us through relationship. The products are like training wheels, right? To get us into these beautiful places.
So seeing this development with babies, so you were starting to sort of connect the dots for yourself. Like, okay, I'm seeing where these connections are happening. You move this through, but then you said early on with parenting, you weren't there yet as a parent. It was still that space of like, we're going to punish you. You go to your room, like all of that stuff. So how did this mold? So where did we go from you as a parent sorting out who you were and then into this space?
Yeah. Well, it actually goes back to this brain. We were just talking about the green brain is the thinking brain. It's the most conscious part of the brain. It wants to control. And that's not a bad thing. It's conscious, so it can create. And I would say of the three parts of the brain, I was most comfortable with this green part that I thought, that's calm and it's present and it's creative and it seemingly thinks it's in control. Yeah. And so as a mom, I was wanting to do it right and be good. And I did a lot of amazing things, natural birth, breastfeeding till 3, but it's not about the doing, it's about the being. And I think where I struggled was the celebration of the moment, which is being present. Right. And it took me really years to wake up to, you're not going to do it right, Suzanne. Just stop, shift your goals. Yeah. It's not about being good and doing it right. And that's a wonderful awareness. And when I stepped into that awareness, it was actually through my many miscarriages that we lost 5 babies after having 2 children, wanting and feeling that there was a 3rd baby waiting for us. And that journey into loss and grief woke me up to my deep desire to control things and to be good and do right. And so that was just amazing. And I think that's really where it all started for me was in loss, where I got my best big shake and woke up.
Yeah. Well, and also connecting those dots of like, this was more about your journey than, and your self-awareness than it was about your child and whether your child was right or wrong. It was like more about where you were with all of this.
Yes, I definitely had a shift. I'm not saying I wasn't conscious. I have been doing yoga and reading and doing the work since I was 18, meditating, all of these things. But I just think there's levels, and sometimes you just have a big aha. And I'm not saying I'm woke right now either. I every day go, wow, look at you are sleepwalking, know. But I do it with much more compassion to myself and a lot more celebration. So I think that's a big distinction, is that as you're a conscious parent, it means that you're self-aware, which means that you're likely to beat yourself up. So be aware when you have a moment of awareness, that celebrate as opposed to judge. Really celebrate. Yay, I'm yelling at my kid. I just noticed. I'm yelling.
I could use that a lot. There you go.
Right? Yeah, I'm being aware. And so it really shifts it actually shifts the science of the brain. You're going to release dopamine, which is dope. And you're going to be like, I'm the bomb. I'm aware, instead of I suck. I'm yelling at my kid, where you release a very different endorphin, a different chemical in your body when you're down on yourself and you're judging.
So many of you may have seen on my social media that I took the plunge and became a beauty counter consultant last month. As a doula, I have prioritized health and wellness for my clients and their families, and this brand is a really natural fit for us. After learning more about our current industry standards and basically feeling nauseated over what other brands are allowed to put in their products, and especially the products we put on our skin, I went through a house-wide purge based on Beauty Counter's famous Never List, which includes 1,500 chemicals they will never use in their products that are still being used in many other skincare products in the U.S. For the month of June, I'm currently offering a free 3-ounce sunscreen mist with any purchase over $150. That's a $20 value. Check out their Father's Day specials as well on beautycounter.com/Chelsea Alders.
Speaking of judging, so I think that's a really good point to bring up, because I think the more conscious, mindful parent community, in quotes, I think there's a lot of super high expectations that we seek to meet or exceed. And I think that could be great because it's constantly having you raise the bar as a parent. But I think it can also be really damaging. I know, just as like one example, Chelsea and I did hypnobirthing with our daughter, and we had the most perfect birthing experience, rainbows and butterflies and Nora Jones playing, and it was the best experience ever. And we were super sucked into and indoctrinated by that hypnobirthing, natural birthing world, which we still adore and love and believe in. But then with our twin boys, it was much more of a medical experience, and it was much more unpredictable, and there was sort of this almost air of like we failed. We didn't do what we were supposed to, or we did something wrong, or what did we do wrong? And like that judgment. And I think with a lot of these topics, people that do classify themselves in these worlds sort of have a lot of judgment and a lot of guilt, because what if you're not doing everything the right way? And then on the other side of this, I think there's probably parents listening to this that are now coming into this sort of conscious mindset, and perhaps they're giving themselves guilt, like, oh my God, I screwed up. My kids are damaged. Can you talk upon that?
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking. It's really profound. I'm just got to sit for that. It's a really profound question. I actually had a woman write to me yesterday who went through our online course, and I think I did maybe 2 or 3 privates with her over a year ago. And she wrote, and I cried. I got her letter when she spoke about what opened up for her through the learning and through just the storytelling that we do as a community. She's told me that the 2 things that really stuck with her, number one was, I guess I had shared that I believe that my children picked me, and that I'm imperfect and I'm perfectly imperfect. And so when I look back, I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and twin 9-year-olds. You better believe there's been a journey. And I'm not the same parent I am today that I was 18 years ago. If I could have bubble wrapped my first child and sent her out in the world, I would have.
Yes.
I was that parent,
Totally, us too.
But it took a little living for me to break that down. And it's okay. I talked to my 18-year-old about it. We integrate that. We laugh, we share, we cry, we talk. It's all about integration, guys. It's not about perfect. You're never, ever, 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 ever going to reach that bar. So stop trying, because in the journey to perfect, you lose everything. You lose the present. And so for all out there that are feeling judged, I would invite you into self-love and then loving that person that you're feeling the judgment from, because you better bet if they're throwing judgment out, they are actually their own worst critic. And sometimes what it takes in that moment is just love. Instead of, defensive, I'm feeling judged, and I reflect back to you how judgmental you're being. What I have the opportunity to do is love myself in the face of your judgment of me. And in doing so, wow, sometimes that other person on the other side is healed in that moment of judgment. And I got to say, Generation Mindful, my biggest hope is that we are not preaching to the choir. I love when I'm on Facebook and I've got somebody who's saying, well, aren't you a bunch of snowflakes? And aren't you special? And aren't your kids going to be, literally, they say the words wimps, and they say, fragile. And
or you get the whole coddled thing thrown at you. Like oh my God, it drives me crazy. I'm like, why would you not want to protect your kids as much as you can at these formidable years, right?
Yeah, well, there's a thought that we have to we have to raise them up to survive the world. So when you're interacting with someone that comes from that place, please understand that they're operating out of their survival brain.
Sure.
And from a place of love, they want my little person and their little person to survive.
Right.
And so to heal that, we can't meet them with our survival brain, right? And so it's such an opportunity for awareness and healing as a world to shift the vibration from just surviving the world to thriving and creating. So It goes back to that brain that we were talking about, red, yellow, green. One of the things we do as a community is we simply drop into our body and notice, where am I? And this goes back to my childhood. I would have loved to have done that. And then having permission to feel wherever I am. It's not being somewhere. It's just noticing, where am I? So when you talk about the judgment, I think it's human nature to judge. And it doesn't come from our most secure places.
No, not at all. I find this, I actually just had a long talk with a birth client yesterday. I ended up being there all day because we just had to work through some of that, in the sense that as women, when we tend to, you know, when you're pregnant and you're walking around and everyone wants to tell you their birth stories, it's like people tend to find it a safe place for them to put all of their, like, well, don't worry about having a natural birth, like just get the baby out, or just worry about a safe baby, because we're defending our own story, right? So like when women are saying that to you, it's not because they don't believe you can't do it. It's because they don't actually care about your journey. They're trying to defend their own journey. So it has nothing, we operate in a world that's very selfish, and that's okay. But you have to remember that when you're going into these places, you know?
It's great, because I feel like when it all comes from our expectations and our goals. So if we're walking around pregnant and we have the goal to be seen, right, and to be supported, we're going to notice when that's not happening. And instead of being left feeling frustrated, if we can shift our goal in the moment to back to our power, like, who am I going to be? My thoughts, my words, my actions in that moment. Maybe I need to walk away because I'm in a place of receiving right now. So I'm going to give myself permission at the party, you know, to do something that might be socially awkward for me. To say, oh, that's wonderful. You know what? I'm going to go check in with Marsha over here.
Yeah.
And then
Marsha.
I'm gone. So,
Marsha,
right? Marsha.
I love it. Well, so just to dive in, because so Jay and I do have 3 intense little people. Like, we have 3 kids. We had 3 kids in 17 months, and it's been basically chaos ever since. So I want to talk a little bit more on a personal level. My biggest struggle, and I feel like this is anyone who has kids fairly close in age, and you know, I think it applies all across the board with toddlers in general, is when you have 3 kids that are sort of all they're just in very different places in the way that they react emotionally. So we have one that is just, she tends to be a little bit more of the like drama. Like if everyone gets a toy, like say we're like taking a toy away, we have one that will be like, and we're never going to get that toy ever again, and her life is over. We have the other one that's just like, I'm going to wait 5 minutes for you to walk away, and I'm going to be sneaky and figure out how to get it back. And then we have the other one who's just on the floor kicking and screaming and super devastated about it. Like we just ripped his heart out of his chest. So like when you have 3 kids on totally different planes, where we go as a family, like what happens to calm that space?
I'm taking another deep breath.
Yeah, where's the presence there, Suzanne?
Yeah, I love it. So, okay. So I always go back to my goals. Okay.
Yeah.
And I also would like to reflect back to you that you're having an emotional experience also in that moment.
I'm totally having an extreme emotional experience in that moment.
So yeah, you're probably you might be the one on the floor kicking.
Yes, that was me actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in those moments, like we need the timeout. Like the kids don't need it. We need it.
Right. Yeah. And that's that evolution of time in. You're actually having one right now. You're having a moment of chaos and awareness. And also, I love to say holding on to letting go, because it's super humbling to not be in control as a parent, to not be in control. So you've got to get back to your goals. And if your goal in removing the toy was to have a boundary, then you need to stay with your thoughts, your words, and your actions, and get to your center so you can find the joy and ease. Because if we root our joy and ease based on our children's thoughts, words, and actions, we'll never be there.
Right.
But if we start to rise above the moment, take a breath, look to your goals, say, do I have a goal right now of harmony and peace? Maybe I have a goal of harmony and peace, which is a glorified happy place, right? It's like, truly, I just want you all to be happy. Just stop and be happy and quiet, right? Let's be happy and quiet and peaceful.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we struggle with things like, I want you to be grateful for me, or I want you to be happy. And I want every parent out there to know that that lives on the other side of whatever they're feeling in that moment. So the best we can do is create permission and boundaries and then allow. So when we start to let go of the attachment to the feeling and we hold on to permission to feel and boundaries. So like you can have your freak out. I'm feeling freaked out too. So I'm going to have to do this, or I'm going to do this. You don't have to say have to, and you don't need to make them wrong about it. It's like, I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm going to go breathe. I'm going to go in the bathroom and lock the door for 5 minutes and freak out. And so children can see you modeling, you're having an emotional experience also, mom. And look what you did to manage your experience. Right. And they will take notes and they will notice. And so I do love going back to what's my experience in the moment. What is my goal for taking away the toy? And then maybe I feel better about it. Maybe I think, you know what? We were misusing the toy and I feel good about giving the toy a break. And my goal is simply to give the toy a break. So you know what? All three of you are going to have your own internal experience in reaction to what I did. And that's okay. I didn't do it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest part is like when I'm jumping into that red brain, when I'm in total fight or flight, it's very hard to start to emotionally react in the proper way, right? So like I'm moving into a place of reaction instead of like sitting with myself. And it's funny, you were talking about before, like we do yoga, we meditate, we like do all the things we're supposed to do to be able to react properly in these moments. But there's something about a 4-year-old that can just, and maybe it's because I'm outnumbered, I don't know, but it's amazing that like you can do all the work. But when they trigger that just one spot that just gets you, I know Jay's is like wasting food. So dinner time is like his hot spot.
I love it. That would be my dad's. Jay, that was my dad's.
It's so
annoying. He would save the food for breakfast. That was breakfast. That was called breakfast.
And then I sit there and catch myself. I'm trying to explain it. Like, look, when you guys waste your food, that means mommy and daddy have to work more. And then I'm trying to explain it. And I'm like, why am I saying this?
Yeah. So cool awareness. So Jay, what you do is we do this. We go into our thinking green brain. Do you see what you did there?
Yes.
Like I'm feeling primal red about this. And I'm going to go into my green brain and explain it away and make it logical and rational. Right?
Yeah.
It's so cool. That's literally what we do.
I know.
Can I say something to what you just said?
Please.
It's so awesome about that trigger of the 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Do you know that song, I'll Take You There? You know, you just keep
saying
saying that over and over.
There.
Yeah.
I can't sing or I'd
sing
it for you.
Sing it for us. Come on, girl.
I'll take you there.
Yeah,
you know
little Suzanne, you sing it.
Yeah, little Suzanne cannot sing, but she's going to do it anyway. I'll take you there, you know, and just wrap that over in your mind again and again, because your little person, this is the best therapy you never paid for. They're literally taking you to that little tiny unconscious memory that we don't even know what it is. But when we go from 0 to 100, you can bet that's an opportunity for integration. Something is there. And that's why in our community, we have this thing called the trigger worksheet. It's 7 steps, and it will help you shine a light to those places that you feel disempowered, that they just take you away. So it could be food being wasted. It could be a 4-year-old on the floor tantruming. Whatever it is, if it happens, notice it happens again and again. That's an opportunity, not a bad thing. It's an awesome thing. It's like, woo, this is my place. You're taking me there. You are taking me there.
So we are lucky enough to have so we go to Montessori. We are at Monmouth Montessori in New Jersey. We are obsessed with this school. We feel very lucky to be there. Our boys' teacher has actually done all your programs. She's actually, like this morning, I saw her drop off and couldn't have been more excited.
Shout out to Amy Lamb.
Amy Lamb. She's absolutely phenomenal. But she's implemented the peace table and a lot of those emotional cards and all that in their classroom, which is amazing for us because with the boys, if we say, do we need to go to the peace table? That's they understand that communication and they understand how to go in the other room. And you know, it doesn't work as smoothly at home as it does at school, but they do it, which is great. She actually this morning was like, I want to know one thing. Her boys have been doing this for 3 years now. This is like a lot of what you've implemented, they use. These are her sons, but they're older now. And so her question for me to ask you today was, what is the plan as they get older? Are you coming up with things for children that are moving into like the tween and teen age group?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. We get a lot of requests. So we're a 3-year-old company, and we are driven by you guys. So you guys are actually at the wheel. You don't even know that, but you're driving.
Yeah.
And I'm mostly listening. So I have my ear to the ground. What I'm hearing a lot of are requests for other languages right now.
Okay.
So I feel like in our evolution, we are a one world family, and we're in English only. We are bringing peacemakers into Spanish. So I feel like the evolution is going to be new languages, and in fact, getting younger.
Okay.
So I do have a request for tweens and teens, and I feel like the course is the greatest opportunity for the mind shift that's happening, and it's happening in the adult. And I feel like in adult relationships, which means like the parent and the teen, or the parent and the adult child, the tool I want to get to you is you and I talking. It's literally my online course, because I really feel like you're the greatest gift you can give that teenager. And they're a little bit beyond the training wheels of my stuffed animal in that moment. Now, it doesn't mean they don't need anything. We all need our hands held, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the same way that you and I are communicating and kind of evolving our self-awareness and our emotional intelligence, we're doing it through relationship. I feel like that's really the opportunity with the tween, teen, and beyond.
Okay.
So it happens in relationship. And what I would say to your friend is, you're already doing it. Like, she's a rock star. She's a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
Every time she shows up and she stops and she pauses and she listens and she's empowering that child. Like, I think that, we're like riding our little training wheels, and all of a sudden we start to take flight, and I can see her with these 3 boys, and they're soaring and they're flying. And so, do that. Like, that's kind of what I would say to her, is like, you're a rock star, you're doing it, and just keep tuning in and trusting. And it's not outside of you, it's inside of you. So there will be a day where I evolve these tools, because we have a lot of requests for the tween teens.
Yeah.
And I'm present to the fact that there's a lot of tween teens out there that will not have an adult with the mirror neurons firing to mirror, right? There's a lot of
a tremendous
teen
amount.
crisis,
Yeah.
Right? Teen crisis. So my goal would be, how do I get in there to be that love, to affirm in that teen that they are love? So we're starting to create books. We are writing our first book right now. It's called Love's Treasure Hunt, and you're the first to hear about it. I've not told anybody.
All right.
Yay. So we're going to get into books, and I think that storytelling and the podcast and books, and then eventually tools for teens will come. But in fact, my goal, I still have a huge area called birth to 2 to groove into. And I feel like the earlier, the better. I want to get in there early.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I've had, just being a doula, I have so many people that I work with that, they really do focus on this birth development, and people that tend to hire doulas do tend to be a little bit more of like the woke parents, because they're looking for that experience. But I do have one of my clients that she does newborn learning, which I had never heard of. And I think that this was like the first time that I was introduced to this phase of, it's not just about birth, it's actually this newborn developmental time that it's a tremendous amount of mom work and parent work. It's a lot of what we're going through. But there is a chapter in there that you can actually start work within, and stepping into that would be really cool. I feel like parents are hungry for it when you have this newborn and you're like, what can I do? This is fun.
Yes. Yeah. And that takes me back to that baby massage. And I'm doing some work with a nonprofit in Arizona, and they're excited about bringing the Gen M tools to at-risk families. So 0 to 5, we're going to be partnering with the parent educators, getting right into the homes of the most at risk, high A scores, lots of challenges, lots of stress. And in fact, when we started this pilot program, I asked them, hey, are your parent educators going in and doing any touch education? Are they doing baby massage? And they said no. And I said, can I come out there and just talk with them and show them? They said yes. So I'm going to be flying to Arizona in June, mid-June, and we're going to start Gen M with this baby massage. So I feel like it's a real full circle evolution of our paradigm, and the opportunity is we're actually going to start these educators with this touch education, and then the mindset awareness, and then moving into the tools.
So Suzanne, speaking of the tools, I really want to actually hear about the specific tools and programs and toys and all of that. But I'm wondering if we can transition to that topic from here. So people might be listening, or we all know someone who's like, well, I was, raised by parents that smacked me and disciplined me and did X, Y, Z, and I turned out just fine. So why is any of this woo-woo stuff even necessary? Are there any yes. Are there any statistics or anything that people that are very much logic brained or kind of stuck in their own mindset can see and be like, oh, okay, I get it now?
Yeah. What I would say to that person is, you are fabulous, and you're fabulous not because of your hitting and your abuse and the spanking, but in spite of.
Right.
You are fabulous, not because of, but in spite of, because the human spirit is so resilient. And so I would never dismiss their experience, but what I would say is, yeah, awesome, you survived that. What if we can cultivate and thrive instead of survive those early years? And what if we can nurture grit and resilience in a conscious, respectful way? And that's the opportunity. It's very hard when it wasn't modeled for us. And that's really why I started getting into practical, tangible tools. And I think I hear you saying, what are those tools?
Yeah. So tell people what exactly you sell and do and promote.
So I think it starts with the online course, which is 6-part. It's a profound opportunity to really shift our mindset into conscious discipline or positive discipline. It really comes back to our thoughts, our words, and those translate into our actions. So it is tool-based. We'll get into a lot of like, how do I do this? How do I say this? How do I discipline? How do I have a boundary? But it's going to start with self-awareness and some mindfulness practice. It's self-paced. It's 6 weeks. It's online. It's very inexpensive. Then we get into the Time In Toolkit. And the Time In Toolkit was my solution to, when I was doing privates, parent, family after family, and even classroom after classroom were struggling with emotions and how to be with them and how to nurture emotional intelligence in the little ones. And so I like to work myself out of a job. I don't want to have to do 5 privates with a family in order for them to get that education or that insight. So I sort of put it all in a box. What I kept seeing myself do over and over and over again with families, I created the tools and put the learning in a box so that people can open the box and just hit the ground running with something called time ins. And so that would be the second opportunity. The next one that I'm super geeked about is Snuggle Buddies. And Snuggle Buddies bring the characters from the Peacemaker mantra cards that are inside the Time In Toolkit, bring those little characters to life for our babies, our 1, our 2-year-olds, our 3-year-olds on up. And it starts to get them in the practice of noticing and naming their feelings very simply, very playfully. And I love, because I'm getting that same technology of the Time In Toolkit, which is for 3-year-old on up. We're now able to start that play and that listening as young as like 1 and 2. So those would be my main key elements. And I would remind everyone out there that if you feel like money is an issue, or you feel like there's some resistance you're feeling to any of these tools, that's okay. It really is. This is a community, and there's so much opportunity within this community for self-awareness. So I love the tools. They help me. They literally help me, pull me into the present moment with my kiddos. But I want you to know it's about relationship, and you're the most important thing.
I think people really, people that might be resistant to this, I think would benefit by hearing what their children or parenting experience could look like compared to what it might look like now, or what are some very easily digestible facts or statistics? I think a lot of people are, especially men, are very resistant unless there's stats.
When we look to mindfulness in the classroom, what we see is discipline actions that are required in the classroom from the teacher to the parent to the child go down by just implementing very simple daily mindfulness practices. Children show more impulse control. They're getting their work done. They're having less outbursts, and there's more cooperation and more listening. And then the academic scores are actually going up. So you're seeing less behavioral outbursts, less need to discipline, and then you're seeing greater learning happen. So understand that emotional intelligence is the basis of all learning. And this Yale and Harvard have both declared that emotional intelligence is the number one predictor of a child's future happiness and success. So whether you want to look to their relationships, to their self-love, to lower abuse of drugs, lower frequency of mental health issues, lower suicide rates, or higher success of relationships, both at work and at home, you're going to see that on the other side of nurturing emotional intelligence. So for me, that's all I need.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so Suzanne, how do you see this as like a program that in comparison, I guess, to some of these learning programs like Waldorf and Montessori and all of that, like the way that we're guiding children to be self-guided play? Are you more trying to just run alongside and have this be like integrated, or is this like an alternative? Where do you see it fall?
Thank you. Definitely integrative. So this is a body of self-awareness, connection, and EQ, emotional intelligence curriculum. So it's being used in Reggio, Emilia, Montessori, Waldorf, homeschooling, every possible setting. We actually have a pilot program going in a school for autistic children, verbal and nonverbal, K through 12 here in St. Louis. 150 Snuggle Buddies have been donated to this 150 children in the school, and they've just started doing the data collection. But what we're looking at is meeting children where they are. So that means whatever setting you're in, mindfulness and emotional intelligence can be just a conversation within that paradigm. So yeah, definitely running alongside.
Are there things that parents can do right off the bat? Are there some, perhaps like a few tips that don't involve buying anything or too much research for people that are either busy or hesitant? Are there suggestions you can say, hey, try this for a couple of weeks, see what happens, and take it from there?
Yes. Name it to tame it would be my first opportunity for them. It's a practice where I would ask you to just notice and name what you're feeling and invite your child into it as well. And what you will see quickly is that things start regulating around your household. Okay. So the big scary outbursts and the tantrums will become less once you start to make it safe for kids to feel. It can actually get worse. I'm just going to put a little asterisk around it for the first 2 or 3 weeks. If children thought it wasn't safe to feel before, and you give them permission, name it to tame it, right? Where you're saying, oh, I noticed, it looks like you're feeling angry, or I'm feeling really frustrated. At first glance, you might be like, okay, it's getting a little crazy around here. It's getting highly emotive. But on the other side of allowing all of those emotions comes regulation. So that would be one opportunity, is you don't need any tools to start practicing noticing and naming feelings around your household. The other one, this is just a little tip. If you're saying, if you don't do this, then I'm going to do this, with just a little tweak, see if when you say, when blank, then. So when you're done with your bath, then we're going to go downstairs and snuggle and read our story. It's very different than, if you don't take your bath, then we're not going to read your story.
Right.
So
one is consequence, and one is like consequence, and one is like almost like a threat or a punishment.
Yeah, and consequences are totally misunderstood by the world. And typically consequences are glorified punishments, right? We don't know how to do consequence. But the beautiful thing about when then is the thing that is the then was already going to happen. So I like to look at it as my court reporter voice. I'm just sort of telling the news of like what's happening here. This happens next. Like once you get your shoes on, we're running outside and we're going to get in the car. You can jump on my back and we're going to go. Like that was already going to happen. But, if you don't, then now I'm at odds with you and we're fighting. And your little kid, your child is going to go into the more defensive part of the brain, that red brain. Mm-hmm. So just stay in your green, yellow brain, stay emotive, stay present, and just connect with them and tell them what's going on. I call the tool my court reporter voice, just the facts, Jack. And so when, then, not if, that, if you don't, then I'm going to do this to you.
Right.
That will change your life right there.
Okay. So I feel like the only other thing I would ask within that is, so if we react, so say there is, like, I'm just thinking of a big one with our boys, they decided to dump out our entire kitchen trash can to find a toy at the bottom of it. And so there was garbage all over. This was like, 5 minutes of quiet. And I come in and there's garbage all over the dining room. And my first reaction is to be like, are you freaking kidding me? And, what did you just do? And clean it up. So we react. So then is there a space in there? Like they're seeing you react that way. You're already that deep in. So then as a parent, is there a way that you say like, this is like the trigger, take a breath? Like, is it just the breathing? Like, okay, you're already in the middle of it now, but how do you stop this pattern?
Yay. So you're looking for your pause button. I like to picture, Staples where you hit the button, that big red button.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I hear you looking for there is your big pause button. Staples, they have that big red button you hit and then you get whatever you're wanting right there. You just hit that Staples button. I feel like you're looking for that pause. So for me, that pause is to stay curious. And if I'm triggered, the mantra that helps me stay curious and in the moment is this. I say to myself, connect before you correct. Connect before you correct. So I come in, it's all over the floor, and I'm feeling triggered. If I can breathe and stay curious, ask a question of your child, or use your court reporter voice and say what you see.
Okay. I see there's garbage all over the floor.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I see garbage all over the floor. What are you doing?
Oh, we're looking for toys, Mommy. Isn't this fun?
It looks like you are having fun, and it looks like a really big mess. I'm starting to feel really sad that I just mopped.
Oh, you're mad at me.
Yeah. So when it's done, then you can set your boundaries.
Yeah.
So finish what you're doing and then clean it up.
Okay.
And so you still have your boundaries, but it's a different place that it's coming from. I don't want to clean it up. I get that. I get you don't want to clean it up, but that's part of that play. So if we're going to throw everything on the floor, then we're going to clean it up. No. Okay, you're mad, you're sad. I see that. We're still going to clean it up. So you're going to stay with your boundary. Okay. You're going to stay with your limit and stay in your center and ride through the tide. If they're going to react and have a tantrum, picture a train going through a tunnel. Sometimes we try to close off that tantrum at the front end. Like, no, you're not gonna lose it. You're the one that did this. You can't get all, well, just let them go. And then they get to the other side of that trash is still there on the floor and you're still patiently waiting and that trash will be picked up,
Yeah.
So the other side of it is sometimes being silly and play can help us through when we really want to lock horns. So depending on their age, if it's a sensory thing where that 4-year-old wanted to smear the coffee grounds all over the floor, what you might do is, oh my gosh, look at my kitchen. I'm really sad because I just mopped it. Why don't we do this? Why don't we, once you get all this stuff in there, why don't we get the bin out and put some coffee grounds out and make a big mess outside? So sometimes I look at the developmental need, what's going on underneath, and see, can I redirect it? That really helped me with my twins when there was biting, spitting, developmental things that happen around age 18 months, right?
Yeah.
You start to freak out like, oh my God, I'm raising, hellions.
100%.
They're biting. Yeah. So one of the spit things we did, we literally did bombing practice. We dropped Cheerios in the toilet and tried to spit on them. Okay.
Okay.
And so like, if you can redirect that desire they have to be messy and to explore and not make them bad or wrong for it, but still give them an insight, that's how they build empathy. They can look up at you and see, uh-oh, mom's not super psyched about this cool sensory exploration I'm having all over the kitchen floor. And if you can own your experience and not make them wrong for it, they can start to build empathy. Like, oh yeah, she did just spend a half hour mopping the floor. And so they can build self-awareness without being bad or wrong. And they can also clean it up and be responsible without being bad or wrong. Now, when we freak out and yell at them, that's totally normal. And what I do then is I do it later. Later, I say, hey, you know what? When I walked in and I was so upset and I saw that stuff on the floor, I felt really angry and I yelled at you. And I want to say, I'm sorry for yelling and thank you for cleaning it up or whatever's going on. Yeah. And don't beat yourself up. Don't model shame and guilt.
Right.
Model self-awareness and just apologize. I must apologize every day. I must apologize every day to my children.
I feel like the open emotional recovery stuff is definitely, that's like, we have strength in that. We're good at that stuff of it being like, how did that make you feel? And I'm really sorry because I felt that way too. And like that stuff we're good at. It's the in the moment when they just like, and really it's a long game. I think that's the thing that's really hard to understand. Like it's nothing gets fixed right there. This is like a long game in parenting, and like your kids understanding that these are the things that are wrong takes many times of them learning that. They're not going to just learn like in one mistake. So that's the hard part, is because as adults, we expect people to like we run a business from home. We expect if there's a mistake, it gets fixed, and then you're not going to make that mistake again as an employee. But as a child, you're going to make that mistake many times, and you need someone to guide you towards the proper emotions that go along with that. And when you're not in like a headspace to deal with that, it's like dealing with your own, insecurities with that.
Yes. One of the first things we do in the Time In ToolKit is we color a sheet, and it's a coloring sheet. It says mistakes help me learn and grow. Mistakes help me learn and grow. And that would be fun to pull that sheet out and color it together and just talk about it, because it's likely growing up that mistakes were not allowed in your world. They were not safe. I'm guessing it wasn't a good thing to make a mistake. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that? I mean,
for the most part, I think it was
that
just
would
more
be most
like
humans.
Yes.
Most humans.
Yeah.
Totally.
Strict, like things are stricter. It's that word strict. It was like a strict household for most of us.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And so I think strict is great and boundaries, but what I think strict masks a lot is a removal of love based on your actions. So where strict breaks down is when there's the shaming and the isolation.
Right.
So we can be very strict with our kids. I am not a pushover mom. I'm probably harder than my husband in terms of discipline, but I keep going like, oh, why do I want to shame you right now? Why do I want to make you wrong and me right? And why do I want to belittle? I just want to notice that tendency in me and own it. And I'm not going to do it perfect, and I'm not going to do it right, but I'm going to call myself out when I'm doing it. And the other day, my daughter she was cutting open things that had black ink in them so she could dip a feather in.
Oh boy.
and write calligraphy, right? And she's 9. And this is happening all over the counters, and it's in my room. And she runs upstairs to show me when she finally got it. And she was drawing with the feather on the paper, and my body, I was like jumping out of my body. Because, I mean, like every fear and worry and like desire for cleanliness was like coming up out of my body. And I was just, almost speechless. And so it's like, it doesn't just happen. And so I was noticing like, gosh, I'm just like, oh my God, I want to yell, or I want to make it wrong, but I'm also present to like, look at how look at this wonder. It looks like the more we can like float up out of our body and watch ourselves. And I did not manage it super great, but I didn't yell. And I was able to be like, oh yeah, look at that. And oh my gosh, what are we going to do about all this ink everywhere? And, and we're going to clean it up. So I just think that's what we're striving for, is to be in the moment and to witness and stay curious to these little people that are having this amazing sensory experience around us, but also be true to our boundaries and our limits, and just do our best to own our own emotional experience, as it's unfolding.
Yeah. So Suzanne, before we get to the end of this, I think there's another side of your story, and I'm really curious how Generation Mindful was birthed into the world. So for the entrepreneurs listening who have an idea, I really am curious, like how and why you thought you had any ability, or why you thought it made sense to start a business, and what gave you the vision to scale it in the way you have. Because I'm sure there's a lot of mindful parenting related businesses that don't really make it out of their own community, but you decided, okay, I see the vision to take this international. Where did you get the entrepreneurial side, and kind of how did that come about?
I think that being an entrepreneur is sort of a way you are. So I was voted most curious in 8th grade. I always wanted to understand people. I always have asked questions. I love to see a problem and try to fix it. So that's a big part of being an entrepreneur. And I think where the faith or the trust that I was creating something of value came from was listening to pain points in my community here locally and thinking, I have an answer for that. So for entrepreneurs out there, instead of just being inspired to make something, I would invite you to really look at the problem and look at what you're creating as a solution. That will really help you on your journey to being successful. And as you create something, I see one thing that people do is they just create a thing without thinking about the bigger picture. And the bigger picture for me is I knew I was creating a brand and a lifestyle and a community, not just a deck of cards. So the first product we launched was Peacemakers, the mantra cards. But at the same time I was launching those cards, I made sure I was launching the bigger picture, the brand. And that's why I think because we were so focused on the bigger picture from the get-go, we were able to go from, I think I probably was selling like one deck of cards every 10 days or something to, I think now we're doing maybe 150 a day units of something, and we're in 4 countries, and it happened quickly. And you've got to get the groundwork when it's really slow around you and you're the entrepreneur. Don't think you're doing it wrong. Think about it this way. You're getting the systems in place so that later when you grow rapidly, you can sustain that growth. And I think that was one of the benefits of our success, is that when we were really small and tiny, I was already working with local fulfillment groups and warehouses and thinking bigger than myself. And the last part I would say is be of service. So when Generation Mindful was never about selling products, it was about the give back program that we have, and never having to write another grant in order to go out in the world and speak and do what I want to do. I didn't want to have to be a nonprofit. I didn't want to have to write grants in order to go into schools. I wanted to be self-funded. So my motivation was, well, let me be a for-profit, social mission driven. And when you have a mission under you, that is your fuel, that is your fire. So you just, as an entrepreneur, get clear about the difference you're making, the problem you're solving, and the people you are helping, and think big picture from the start and let that fuel you. And I believe you will be successful.
And when are we going to see you on Shark Tank?
You will not see me on Shark Tank.
Oh, come on, Suzanne.
Because I don't think we need Shark Tank. And doesn't it sound egocentric?
No, it's beautiful.
I don't want to give away. I believe in smart money and heart money. And I've watched Shark Tank and I've considered it early on, but we're past that now. You guys have been too awesome We are mission driven. We're community grown. We are super grassroots. And we've been able to grow this in a way where we get to direct it. And I think if we gave away a big chunk to grow fast, we would lose a lot of what is really driving our success.
Yeah.
But I can tell you guys, we're in this super growth phase, and it's because of awesome communities like this community, and people just get it. And the time is now for us to be moving away from shame and pain and, raising consciously. So I don't think we need Shark Tank as a community. I think we've got this.
So Suzanne, are you guys, with all this give back, are you guys, is Generation Mindful registered as a 501c3 as a whole, or are you guys just a company and then you have like a branch that gives back?
Yeah, we are like Tom's Shoes. We are really inspired by like Warby Parker and Tom's Shoes, where you buy a pair, give a pair.
Okay.
And we do 5% back. And so we've done over 40,000 in tools to schools and organizations like the autistic school we're working with, and the nonprofit in Arizona that we're working with, and an inner city school here in St. Louis. And what I love about that, we're getting the tools really front lines, and we're also able to partner and grow and listen and gain data. So we're doing pilot programs and we're getting research. So it's a beautiful partnership, and it's via the for-profit model.
Okay.
So I consider it social mission driven for-profit.
Awesome. I like the balance in that. That's great.
Before we get to the last question, can you briefly tell us what like a typical workday looks like for you?
Well, right now I'm sitting in my bathroom because we wanted to do this interview.
Are you going potty?
And I didn't have good internet apparently upstairs, even though I just had a guy in, and we spent about 8 hours working on this internet in my home. But we have about 6 people working on Gen M here in St. Louis, largely. And then I have a virtual assistant, and we have about 5 adults with special needs who do all of our packing and fulfillment. So we're a big team. And we have a warehouse that does all of that as well here in St. Louis, and they have a fabulous program. So we're able to partner with them and employ adults with special needs to really bring Gen M out into the world. So, and I'm doing most of it from my home. And we also have we use a workspace downtown St. Louis. So as we're growing this summer, we're going to have 3 interns from Washington University, and we're going to be using our workspace downtown. And I hope I answered your question, because I think I'm a little bit all over the board there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we have one last question we ask all of our guests, and since we only touched upon your childhood, I'm interested to hear. So we want to know, if I were to drop you back in your childhood kitchen with, all those kids and
all
family.
6 siblings.
Yeah. What's the first thing you think of?
I'm standing on a wooden chair. It's turned backwards, pushed up to the counter, and I'm helping my mom make dessert. She's got the beater and the blender, and we're stirring up something like a yellow cake mix. And I can't wait till she gets to the end and I can lick the beaters. And I want to beat out all my siblings to get the bowl. That's just literally immediately comes to my mind.
Awesome.
There's so many sensory memories of being in the kitchen and my mom making dinner and just being together. And that would be it. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite. I feel like the sensory side of it is why people are always shocked by the questions. They're like, oh, I can like feel myself back there. I love it. It's a good place to be in your head.
Speaking of your 6 siblings, like, so the nature and nurture thing, are any of your siblings looking at what you're doing and did they have a completely different experience? Like, really? You got that from our childhood? I got blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. My siblings are my greatest fans, and my mom. My dad passed away in August, and I feel like she's been working, pulling some big strings for me up there. No, thank you. We're all still working this together. And all of us had, I think, pretty similar experiences in that we were wowed that our parents were so amazing. I mean, there was like, how do you have 7 children and do anything, much less go make it important to go on a trip every summer. Like, how do you do that? And so we all just sort of stand in amazement at the people, the discipline that my mom and dad embody. And when I think of my dad, I think about someone who says, if you're going to do something, go all out and do it. He used to joke, like, if you don't take a bath with your socks on, so like, that's the people that my mom and dad are. And my siblings, we each are different people. One lives in Japan, one lives in Seattle, we all do different things, but at the root of it, and we've all come into our own self-awareness at different stages and ages, but at the root of it all is love. And whether we have trauma in our backgrounds, or whether we have just whatever our journey is, at the root of it all is just that love. And I've got to say, I feel like I'm really, really blessed to be part of a big family. And so our journeys are different, but there's definitely a lot of respect throughout.
That's beautiful. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Suzanne. I mean, it's great just to briefly see your face on the online chat earlier, and put a face and a voice and a personality behind your amazing newsletters. And I hope everyone listening got a lot out of this, as we did. So thank you for that. We are actually a proud affiliate of your site, so we'll have all the links in the show notes online, and everyone can go to jenmindful.com. Is there anything else you'd like to plug or mention before we hang up?
I just want everyone out there to know that you're a rock star, and please celebrate you today. If you do one thing, just pause, notice, and just like have a dance party in your head, because you're amazing.
I love it. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne. You're amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, Chelsea.
Hi there. So I want to talk about the emotional explosion that's been happening since we implemented this program.
Emotional explosion. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So Suzanne reminds us in this interview that, like, sometimes for the first week or two, kids can be a little over the top emotional because they're having this new recognition of emotions. And it's interesting because they're having these big explosions, and then they're asking to go get their emotion cards, which is pretty cute.
Yeah, I've seen that too. At first I was a little I don't know, not what's the word I'm looking for, a little doubtful that it would like work at certain times. I knew it works because they've been doing it at school, but there was a couple times where our kids were just like over the top, like losing it, and I'm like thinking, are these really going to do anything? And then to see Grayson like the next day ask to do the cards, I was like, no way.
Yeah. It took us a little while to get past just sad, mad, and happy.
Yes.
Like...
And he was like looking through these. Okay, let me cough here. He was going through like these stack of cards specifically looking for sad.
And then I finally hid sad and mad, so he had to work out something.
We're like,
else.
How about this one? No, not looking for sad.
And then my favorite is when he's all better because we've made him laugh throughout fixing all these things, and then he's laughing trying to find sad.
Yeah, trying to milk it.
Play a game on us.
And it's almost always like, what can we do to make you feel better? And Grayson's go-to is, I want a glass of water.
I want a glass of water, always. Although he just figured out that I can create my own card.
People might have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, it's fine. They're going to have to learn. I mean,
So there's this thing called the Time in ToolKit, and it's awesome. And it's basically a bunch of cards with what?
Those are the feelings cards.
The feelings cards.
Yeah, the Time in ToolKit is the wall posters.
Okay, so I'm totally screwing up the names of things, but I know how it works. We have these, what's it called?
They're like feelings cards.
All right, these feelings cards, which are amazing. And it's like these little cards with drawings of kids' faces and different emotions. And they're like color-coded for like more positive emotions or more negative emotions. So you can like quickly see what's what. And they'll have... they have feelings like sad, mad, and happy, and jealous, and all different things. The one that confused me was they had one that was flexible.
I like the flexible one,
which is
I'm
cool.
always trying to push that on them.
Yeah,
like,
the kids have no idea what that means.
Feeling flexible, but I think that shows like how it will be implemented as they develop more understanding of their emotions, which is pretty cool. It's funny.
So then the kids pick how they're feeling, and then you're prompted to pick a card from the solutions of what might make you feel better. And there's things like breathing deeply, thinking happy thoughts, drink a glass of water, which Grayson loves. Coloring,
read a book,
doing a puzzle.
So for the record, last week we had the dreaded, like, all of a sudden the last week of school, Judah has decided that he's going to cry at drop off. And his teacher, knowing that we've been implementing these cards, she had him do them, and he was screaming, crying. It was awful. I had to walk out, and the whole like that just typical mom leaving your kid crying at school thing. It's awful. And she said that about 5 minutes into it, he wanted to do the cards. He did them, and then he read like 3 books. And then after, he said it took 3 books, but he was all better. So seeing that they can like carry that through to the classroom is really cool.
Yeah, I think it's great for parents too, because it really helps you to find that pause before you lose patience in the whole process.
It gives you something to do.
It gives you something to refocus the energy and say, okay, let's work this out together, because kids are great at like pushing your buttons.
No,
and
not
so
ours.
It's really, I think the cards are really great for like just taking a time out and pausing and saying, okay, let's work this through. And I kind of want adult versions of these cards as well.
I know. Well, I usually pick my emotion too.
You do?
Like, yeah.
You pick yours?
If Grayson's like, I'm sad, I'm like, well, I'm mad. So
I'm frustrated.
Yeah, let's get there together, buddy. No, they're great. And I'm excited. We're getting the posters framed for our Time In Toolkit. We're so grateful that, you know, we have all this stuff now. And so they use the Time In Toolkit at school. So it's basically just like a take on the time out, but they have a place to go to like express their emotions, and, you know, they can squeeze the different emotional stuffed animals to sort out what's going on. And it's really cool. The whole thing is like a very cool program.
Yeah, we made like an easy link for you guys if you want to just go right to it. If you go to jalders.com/genmindful, GEN mindful, you will be taken to all of Suzanne's Generation Mindful products, and they really do work. We're not just saying that. It's like really incredible seeing what our kids are doing with trying to just name how they're feeling.
Yeah, like this is a big one for us. I feel like one of our biggest, actually what is so weird about this interview is our first week of school, we did our the back to school night at Montessori, and Jay is always like, what can I implement at home? What can I implement at home? Like, it's so beautiful and peaceful here. Like, how do I bring this home? And the only thing Mrs. Lamb was pushing was Generation Mindful.
Right.
She was like, this is the thing you can do at home. Like, this is really, and you know, that's not a Montessori tool. This is being used for like autism and for all behavioral things with kids. And she uses it in her own house, and it's made a lot of changes. And she's like, you know what? This is like the one thing that makes a really big difference. Mrs. Lamb is their teacher, if you didn't get that throughout the interview. But I mean, isn't that cool that her name's Lamb and she's a preschool teacher?
Yeah, it kind of fits.
Yeah, that awesome.
She could either have been like a preschool teacher or a butcher.
Oh, God.
Something to do with
farmer.
Jesus.
Her Jesus, yes.
Right? That's like her go-tos.
Yeah, I guess so. You don't think farmer instead of a butcher? I was, you know.
Is the lamb what wool comes from? Or is that
sheep?
A sheep. So that she couldn't be like she couldn't sew blankets from lamb.
Is a lamb a baby
lamb.
sheep?
Yeah, you can make up lamb's wool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, lamb's wool.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know, we're vegan. We don't talk about this stuff.
What about the other side of this interview, which was great, which was the entrepreneurial side? I mean,
yeah, that she turns
that
this
is just awesome. Like seeing how simple the products are, yet how effective they are, and how she seems to be crushing it.
It was just such a need. Like, honestly, the parents just need a tool to be like, what do I do here? Like, these kids are, you know, and she struck a nerve, and it's cool because then people buy it and then they're like us and it works. So then they're like, it's been spreading like wildfire, which is really,
it's like
really
one
cool.
of those, we talked about Shark Tank. It's like one of those Shark Tank things where like half the products on Shark Tank are either so complex and techy, and you're like, there's no way I would ever want to go into a business like that. And then they come across these products where it's like, here's a new silicone mat or something. And
like, how did no one think of this
and you're
yet?
like, really? It's like that simple. And then like next year they come on like, we went on Shark Tank. We're making $40 billion from our silicone mat. I'm like, screw you guys.
I know, but don't compare her to a silicone
No, I'm
mat.
simply saying that it's great how if you could find a simple solution that works, like these products, they work and they're simple, and she's doing great with it. She's providing for her family and she's helping other people, and that's great. That's where I was going with that.
Okay,
you're like trying to like turn me into like one of those like plates you shoot in the air and you're shooting me.
Oh no, well, I just didn't want to like downplay what she created.
It's awesome.
Here.
As I'm sure silicone mats are probably also awesome.
Yes, totally
in
awesome.
A much different genre
I'm
of life.
so sorry if you're listening, silicone mat makers.
But if you want to be a sponsor, hit us up.
Oh my God. All right, guys, I hope you like this. I also hope you really just love our outros. You really should listen to all of them.
Of course, anyone that's actually listening is already listening.
But just to this one.
But you should tell all your friends.
They maybe didn't listen to every outro previously.
This is true. You can go back, listen
to just the outros. Might just be like the
outros.
time of day when we're only hanging out with Kevin.
Yeah.
He's the only one here listening to our outro.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. All All right.
Kevin Rigby. Another shout out to Kirsty, our awesome assistant.
Oh, Kirsty,
who has
you're
been
amazing.
a dream.
And you
Hopefully
make me
she's listening
with
to
your
this.
Insta all
Her
day
Instagram
long.
is amazing.
Yeah. In hindsight, if you want to check her out, she's really hilarious.
She's like seriously crushing the social media game.
Total hot mom. Got to check her out. She's amazing. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks, guys. We hope you loved that episode. If you did love it and could give us some love on iTunes, that would be amazing. You can leave a review and we will give you a shout out at some point on this podcast.
Also, if you guys can follow us on social media, we would love to hear from you. We are on pretty much every social media platform at Shifting Perceptions Podcast, which is the same as our website, shiftingperceptionspodcast.com. We look and reply to all comments, so please share with your friends, tag us. We appreciate all the love.
And don't forget that all of our guests also see all these comments, so I'm sure if you want to just have a space you can reach out, these are the places to do it. We also want to give some love to our amazing photographer that has done all of our photos so far.
Kevin Rigby.
His website is wavelightstudio.com. And
also our really good friend John Harvey, who did the music for our podcast. You can find him at Instagram at Harvey Wallbanger. So that's our little rolling credits. We will be back next week.